Hello, it's Adam Morrison. When it comes to top-tier contracting, my go-to choice is McGilvery Environmental. I know a thing or two about excellence, and that's exactly what you'll find with Kip McGilvery and his team. They're not just any contractor, they're the best in Spokane and North Idaho. From start to finish, they ensure your project is completed with the highest quality results. With years of experience and expertise, they handle it all. New construction, meticulous repairs, asphalt paving for residential and commercial properties, excavation, and even environmental remediation. So why wait? Reach out to Kip McGilvery Environmental today by calling 208-556-6384 for your free estimate. Don't forget to mention my name, Adam Morrison, and experience the difference McGilvery Environmental brings to the table. Again, that's 208-556-6384, McGilvery Environmental. My number one choice for all my contracting needs.
Produced locally in Spokane, Washington at Spocast. The podcast intro song is Get Up by Jinx Universe. Listen to his music on Spotify and follow him on social media at I am Jinx Universe.
Yeah. Woo. Man, forget this job, dog. Yeah. Working this graveyard shift, I hate it. 6 in the morning, I'm off, I made it. When I get home, I'm a
Season 4, Episode 2, sponsored by McGilvery Environmental Perimeter. Huddy. It's good to see you, bud.
Oh, it's great to see you.
It's good to see you.
Hey, how did we not do the lake this year? Like, what in the world's going on? Our kids are so darn busy.
I gave out the
Mr.
invite.
Mom,
I know, and you had...
That was my daughter's birthday.
Yeah. And you were holding down the fort with family and stuff.
Yeah.
I get it. You know, and I was gone in July for 14 straight days.
Yeah.
You know, in Ohio, and you know how it is, the schedules. But
yeah, indeed. We'll get caught up here.
We'll get caught up with the beer drinking and the storytelling. But yeah, it summers always fly by. It's the same old adage, but you're also like, it was 74 on Saturday. I was like, man, I should go up to the lake and just sit there and get drunk by myself. Didn't do it, but I thought about it because it was so nice. It's like, this never happens in October, but yeah, anyway, it's good to have you on. I always love this episode because the insight you bring, obviously we have a, you know, a friendship, but we both understand the game at the similar level. You obviously know kind of where our guys are expected to be, a different perspective than other media folks. I don't mean that's not a dig, but it's just the reality of it. And you've done this, what, 20 some years?
Yeah, we're 23 maybe.
23.
Yeah.
That's crazy. What am I on? 6?
Yeah, I think you're 6 or 7. 6,
I
maybe
think it's 6.
Yeah,
I think it's year 6. Yeah. So, you know, we obviously have a rapport, but you know, I want to get into. Obviously, we're going to talk about the Pac-12 stuff later.
Yeah.
That's a big thing, but I think we need to really cover the new additions roster-wise.
Yeah.
I did my first episode, and I wouldn't watch practice. Obviously, watch Craziness in the Kennel, but I wouldn't watch practice. They look great. They always do at practice. Phoebe runs a good ship, and it's rare that you see a bad practice. But I literally sat there and was like, how are they going to play all these guys?
Yeah.
And I want to get your initial thoughts on, we'll get into rotations, but like Cleef battle. Okay. What's the Cody? How do you
Inocente.
Inocente.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Perfect. Yeah, I always rely on you on the name stud. What's the Real Madrid? I can't say his name either.
Oh,
the big
Dejana.
Okay.
Yeah.
Him. Obviously I like the point guard kid.
Braden Smith.
But just talk about, like, who do you think is going to stand out the most right away? Because Stromer's got to have a good year coming back. Obviously, our 2-point guards, Hickman and Nembhard, are going to play a ton.
Right.
There's no question. They're going to play 32 minutes plus. And that 32 will be at 32 because of blowouts. Normally, it'll be 38 if it was not blowouts.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So who do you think, like, right off the bat has impressed you the most out of the new like, transfer portal new guys?
Mo, it's so funny that you talk about that right off the bat. I'm going to throw this question back at you after I answer it. I mean, I went to practice, and I was shocked. Maybe I'm just going to throw it at you right now. Just watching them get up and down. Like you said, so much depth. And then you talk about, like, physical, like, all airport team, right? They're walking down the street. You're like, hey, this is a team. I mean, you go back to, right, 08, 09, you know, with Pargo and Bolden and Heitfeld and Big Rob and, you know, Ira Brown and Meach and Stephen Gray. and just physical Micah Downs,
Micah,
that physical group. And then I think, 2019, I was going back and looking at this stuff, and you look at, that back row in the team picture is like Rui and BC and like Philip Petrusev and Killian and, Corey, and even, Jeremy Jones, who was, 6'7", 6'8", 225 pounds, that's what jumped out to me at practice, and at Craziness a little bit. But just the physical size, a lot of those new guys bring, obviously. I mean, they talked about KD. I mean, Battle's a big, strong kid.
Yes.
Right? I mean, Mike Ajayi looks the part, right? And obviously plays the part, right?
That's the one I'm confused about. And I mean that in the good way. He's first team all-league.
Yep.
We always talked about how great he was in Pepperdine, and Pepperdine wasn't very good, but that's a matchup. It was a weird matchup for us, tough.
Yep.
And we could kind of throw all of our defensive eggs at him at once. So he didn't have like explosive games against us, but you were like, the kid's pretty good. You know what I mean? We can tell we were like, all right, we're going to leave the other shitty wing on the, like throw it to him and whatever. I'm just curious, when you go on the wing spot, Battle, like you said, he's terrific. Ajayi was first team all league.
Yep.
And then Dusty Stromer, from all intents and purposes, looks bigger.
Yep.
Just played well from what I've heard.
Yeah. He's getting to the rim a little bit.
Just getting to the rim.
Right.
He's not just a pull, it's a, a swing shooter.
Yeah.
So I keep going, man. And then Inocente, right?
Yep.
Inocente, like he was.
Well, and the sneaky one, like with him, right, is I think we all were kind of thinking, it was like, oh, he's a defensive specialist from, Tarleton State. So it's like, okay, well, if you're a defensive specialist playing at that level, like you can't shoot, right? Like I mean,
no, it's a good
play.
And
you watched him in Craziness and watched him in practice, and same thing. When you talk about just physically, he's 6'5", 205 pounds, big, long. He looks the part, right? And he's knocking down shots and he's doing stuff. So like in my mind, a little bit, he was going to be one of the kids. Like, okay, he's a sophomore, get him a year in the program, and then he'll have an opportunity next year when a lot of guys leave.
Yeah.
But now you see him playing really well.
Yeah.
And you're just like you said, so let's add him to the mix. I mean, you've got him, like you said, Dusty, who obviously is expecting to play. He started last year, right? Yeah. So in his mind, he's going to be playing.
He's a top 40 recruiter.
Yeah,
what I mean?
Exactly. And then, who's the name that seems to get lost to me a lot in all this stuff is Ben Gregg.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Ben is a kid who can play the 3 and play the 4, obviously. And so you throw him in that mix with Ajayi, who can play the 3 and the 4.
Yep.
Battle's probably a 3-2 guy, I would imagine. Right, exactly.
Scoring guard.
Yeah, scoring guard. So all of a sudden you look at that, and like I said, and then Dusty's at the 3. And then when you just look at the rotations, right, at those positions, like you said, if Nolan and Ryan are going to play 32 minutes apiece.
Yeah.
Okay, so that leaves right 16 minutes at the 1 and the 2 per game.
Yep.
And then the 40 minutes at the 3.
Yep.
And we just talked about a lot of kids who can play, those couple of spots. I don't know, Mo, tell me what you think about this. I was talking to someone about this, and I was thinking about it. For so long, coaches use kind of that 3-man rotation at the 4 and the 5.
That's been the best way to do it.
Right.
Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But I almost wonder this year if you go to, because of the personnel. Yeah. And you've got, Braden. Everything I've heard about Braden, he's been unbelievable.
Yeah, he's got to play more this year.
And Graham. So do you almost go traditional, like I've got 2 5s.
Yeah.
And those guys are playing. And then we're going to play these other guys at the 4, or like you said, or you go to 4-man rotation there.
Yeah.
And shorten that rotation a little bit. I think it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things I'm looking for at the start of the, we're going to the exhibition game on the 26th. To be able to see, obviously it's an exhibition, but how he does, especially the big rotation, because we've been most successful when we have had 3 really good bigs.
Yep.
And you all play them 22 to 32 minutes.
Yep.
And it keeps everybody happy. They kind of all get their touches. You don't have to worry about foul trouble. It's like a European model of substituting, like Tommy used to kind of brought it in, but it used to be back up. You know what I mean? And then it's just like, whoa, we got to play 4 guys. And sometimes that's counterproductive.
Yeah.
But like you said, Ben Gregg's earned a right to play a ton. He had a terrific year last year. He's crowd favorite, hustle guy.
Yep.
Could score. You know what I mean? Like he can he spreads the floor for you. It's not just like glue. Like when I say hustle guy, I don't mean that bad way, but he does all the little stuff. But like sometimes you look down, you're like, oh, he had 14 points. We were one play for him. He's 4 for 6. You know,
right.
That type of thing. And then, okay, Ajayi's got to play because he's kind of a face-up 4, but he gives you that matchup problems.
Yeah.
And then like I was hammering on it last year, and I had to toe the line a little bit. But on this show, it was like, Braden Huff has got to play more.
Yeah, right.
Right? We would talk about it without trying to be divisive or whatever, but it's like, dude, the guy comes in and scores. And I knew for Feely what Feely was doing. He was just trying to bring him along, and it wasn't anything of vendetta or anything, but it's like, Graham's going to play a ton. Anton, getting drafted, is going to play a ton. He's one of our all-time great defender, do everything type of kid.
Yep.
So you're right. I'm really curious to see how the substitution pattern, especially at the 4-5, goes. Now, it's a good problem to have.
Yep.
But also, it can be an issue when you transfer portal.
Yes.
Parents.
Yes.
And I know people kind of maybe roll their eyes at the parents, but that stuff does matter.
Yep.
And we're a good program, and we're care about people. So you're not going to lie to people to get them to come here.
Right.
And then also, like, if you have, those relationships go sour, well, these parents or AU director talks to the next group of kids, and I wouldn't go there. That's a real thing too. Doesn't mean you do everything they say.
You have to be careful.
You
right?
have to be careful.
Do. Now, Mo, and this is going to be the part of that gets interesting to me over these next couple of years with all the transfer portal stuff. Because if you look at our roster, right, and look at your 1, your 2, KB, he's going to be gone. Your starting 5 is going to be gone. Yeah. Ben Gregg is going to be gone. Yeah. And when you look at the people that you're losing, if you can convince guys, hey, next year's your time. The problem is this isn't 2006 anymore.
Yeah,
where you convince guys, hey, your time's coming. So it's going to be interesting, because one of the things, and I know you hear it all the time, and when you talk, oh my gosh, this team is so deep. Oh, they've they got 14 guys. Like, yeah. And when it gets to March, it's going to be 7.5.
We always say 7.5. It's true, though.
Right. And so that means 6 of those kids are not going to be playing as much as they want to. And so it is going to be, like you said, it's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
And I think what you hope is, I think when you look back, Mo, right, like at the 17 team, the 19 team, when coach talked about that, they would have those, their scrimmages, and they would play, and practices were so competitive, and everybody was pretty dialed into it. I mean, obviously you want to play in games, don't get me wrong, but at least you've got an opportunity to get out there and compete and get better.
Yep.
And if you have the right people talking to you, hopefully that works out. Because you're right. Look, there are going to be some kids that aren't happy that they're not playing.
100%.
And it's going to be understandable. But you also hope that there's a little bit of also understanding of, hey, KB is playing in front of me. That kid scored, 1,400 points in his career.
Yep.
He's in his 5th year.
Yep.
Maybe he should be playing ahead of me, or at least be accepting of it, right? And that's going to be the interesting part, like you said, because the transfer portal, as soon as somebody starts telling you,
well, it's happened to us, with the 2 kids that went to Wake Forest, Hunter Silas, and then Efton, right? So, like, we're not immune to other people leaving to other big programs that are productive players, not just, sometimes a kid's not productive, he still may be good, but it's not a big, huge loss. But like Hunter Silas was trending really to the right direction, and then he's like, whoa, he left? Whoa, you know what I'm saying? So it's a real, I don't want to say issue, because issue is the wrong way, but it's a real something that I'm going to keep an eye on the whole season. And it's going to be another, how great is your staff, which we have a great staff, but are they good enough to like make sure everybody, because there's going to be some, can I come talk to you, coach, in the office?
Yeah. And
conversations.
And I'm going to throw this one out there too, Mo, just because it's going to be interesting for the coach. I think you talk about blowouts. You look at the schedule this year, right? I mean, this schedule is as loaded as, and I know we always say, it's the best schedule we've played. I mean, you look at this one, right? I mean, there are a lot of really tough games, which maybe means that rotation is going to shorten up a little bit, right? Yeah. And so even then, it's not going to be like, well, okay, we can get this kid 28 minutes.
Yep.
And
so we can get you 18 minutes tonight.
Yeah.
And we know we're going to be up by 20 at half, and you're going to score 12.
Yep.
And then we have ammo to be like, what are you talking about? Right.
Yep.
And it's a real part of coaching, but it's more the managerial side of coaching, is keeping everybody happy. And we're not saying it's like the pros, it's still college basketball. You still have the authority in a good way over a young kid that wants to be coached, but also in today's world, it can just go, and it's so true. And
and even think 5 years ago, we'd be sitting here, the conversation would be like, oh man, like we got all these older guys and they're going to play, right? I mean, you've got Nolan's a 4-year starter. I mean, Ryan's been around the block. I mean, he's got a ton of experience. KB's a 50-year guy. Graham is a senior. Ben's a senior. Like, man, we're gonna have a great team, and look at all the young guys behind them.
I know.
We're not gonna miss a beat next year. And instead, we're having this.
You're like,
oh my gosh, I hope we don't lose our entire roster.
100%.
After the season, it's crazy.
I'm really looking forward to the first exhibition game, but this is one of the weirdest feelings I've had about a team in a good way. But we've never had this many guys that were supposed to play. Like we've had the BC, the Rui era, there still wasn't like 12 or 13 on that team that you can. I mean, we even talked about June. Yeah.
Well, and you know what? In June actually has been pretty good.
I know.
Is what I've heard. Right?
That's what I'm saying.
A lot more comfortable at craziness.
That's what I'm saying. Like we haven't even mentioned him. And like he is a good player in my opinion. And, I'm not saying he should be playing a ton or whatever, but he's good enough to play, and we haven't even mentioned him.
Yeah. No, isn't it crazy?
It's crazy.
Right? And you're so right too, because when you look at this, isn't like, okay, hey, we brought in. I mean, obviously Innocente, I think when you were bringing him in, okay, he's a young guy.
Yeah.
But I mean, Ajayi didn't come here to not play.
100%. Right? His last year too,
KB didn't come here to not play.
Yeah.
I mean, Graham didn't come here 2 years ago to not play his senior year, right? Yeah. I mean, you start running through all the numbers. I mean, Dusty has to feel like, through circumstance, obviously with Steele's injury last year, he kind of got thrust into it. But after a year, it's like, okay, hey, I started all these games. Like I was a part of this deal. Like I feel like I should be playing, right? And
should be 25 minutes, like in his mind, 25 to 30 minutes a night and getting touches. So it's going to be curious. It's a good problem to have. We're not saying, and I'm not doing it to stir up the pot or whatever, but it's a real thing you have to discuss because you can't just go, well, that kid will be fine if he doesn't play, or it's no big deal. And like I said, the staff is going to have. There's going to be my Steve and RJ are going to have to like massage some egos, man, and really get some of these kids through the year, because there's going to be some hurt feelings. Doesn't mean they're going to be disrupted towards the team, but it's also human nature to be upset you're not playing as much.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to that in a weird way. What do you think, like, for our guys coming back? Like, what do you think their expectations should really be? Obviously, we are a winning program, but like, if you're Nolan and Ryan and Graham, like, are you trying to say like, hey, I want to be first? We all want to be first team. One of us be MVP, and try to obviously make a Final Four run. Because I'm curious of that too, because these are guys that have pro aspirations.
Yep.
And now you have all these other dudes around.
Yep. No, you're right.
Right. And like Graham was terrific last year. Kind of a nice surprise because he didn't play for a year and a half. And we were just kind of like, well, who knows? We know he was good at Wyoming, but Wyoming wasn't very good. Or he just threw it to him every time. You know what I mean? So he was a nice surprise, like efficient. Remember, he had that lull earlier in the season. I think it was the UConn game. He kind of got chewed out front of the world, and he kind of switched his deal. It was the right thing. And then same with Ryan. Ryan was not very good at the start of the year. I mean, he just wasn't. He was just not efficient. And then he turned it around. And then Nolan, same thing. And Nolan was a little bit more efficient, but they both like really started playing at an extremely high level and made the season when we got to 20-5. Oh my God.
Right.
I mean, if you look back, like, actually they're playing pretty good. So what do you think, like, are you concerned with that dynamic? Are you going to be watching for it like I will be?
I think so, a little bit. You know, it's funny, we talked to Ryan at Craziness, and his thing was like, hey, we all know what we're trying to do. He's like, we all have to eat. That was his thing. It was like, we all have to, so like everybody, maybe the numbers aren't going to be huge, but everybody just has to get theirs and kind of accept it. And so that seemed to be his mentality, taking it in as the point guard was like, all right, hey, like, this is kind of how we're going to do this, right? Is that everybody's going to get the ball a little bit. It may not be, and I think for, like, let's talk about a kid like Mike Ajayi, right? So he comes in, you talk about, I mean, he averaged 17 and a half and 10 or whatever, right? I mean, those are unbelievable numbers. He's not going to do that for Gonzaga, right? I mean, realistically,
probably not.
And not because he's not capable, but because he's got
we're not going to throw it. We're not going to throw it to him on the 18-foot block. 12 times in a row.
Exactly,
like
right. Exactly, right. So the question is, and he seems like everything that we've heard, and I've talked to him a couple times, seems like a really nice kid. Will he be good with 14-8 and be able to showcase his skills and be able to play against
he's 12-6.
Connecticut. And,
That's not enough, but just numbers wise,
right?
Minutes wise.
Yeah. And I think that's what Ryan was talking about, was as long as all of us are buying into this thing, we all understand it. I mean, he made it sound like maybe there had been some, conversations that have taken place of like, hey, look, none of us is going to go and be a 28 night, or a night guy.
Yeah.
And let's be okay with that, because we'll go win. And if we win, it's pretty remarkable what happens. People notice you, right? And look at Anton. Anton's playing, his numbers, not until his senior year, didn't, really jump out at you. And even so what do you average? 14 a game, 14 and a half a game. So it's not crazy,
Yeah.
It's like, hey, winning basketball player from a winning program.
Yeah.
And teams saw it, right? Let's take a chance. So hopefully that's the mentality, because that's what he talked about.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing how the backcourt has a second year together. Like I said, they were terrific in the the second half of the last season. They weren't great in the first half, and that's not a knock. But if you look at their numbers, like, what was it, Maui, they were not very good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just didn't shoot it well, and I think Nembhard was pressing too hard.
Yeah,
and
I think
finally
he was
slowed
too.
down, and then his numbers creeped up, and he started playing better. He just like, slow down, man. Like, just stop trying to make too many plays. And then Nolan, I think was feeling got to score a little bit more things that letting the game come to him, and then he had some big games. So I'm curious to see how well they'll play off each other again, because they built that rapport, and like I said, they played really good. And then I thought Graham was terrific. And I think with the shooting that we've added, the players that we mentioned, especially like Battle and Stromer, for all intents and purposes, can't double team as much anymore.
Yeah.
So that'll give him a great opportunity to score.
Yeah.
And then Braden Huff is in that same category where you can, throw it to him one-on-one, old school, back to the basket and get a bucket and get a good look. But
well, and it's going to be crazy too, right? Because I think when you look at the team, what excites me the most, you talk about that, right? You just throw it in there. Ben can stretch it, like you said.
Yeah,
I mean, if Dusty's shooting it, right? I mean, he's going to draw the defense out.
Yep.
KB, I mean, I think he made more free throws last year than anybody on our team attempted. Right, so he's going to get to the line, right? I mean, he gets 7 or 8 free throws a game. So you've got a guy. Hey, we haven't scored for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Hey, put it in his hands, let him go and get fouled and make free throws. End of the game situation, right? Hey, let's go and get some free throws. You add that to the mix. The athleticism, like I was saying earlier. I mean, Ajayi, he can get up and get it, right?
Yeah.
Battle, we were joking again that there was no slam dunk competition at Craziness. No. And it was kind of like, well, hey, maybe that's the reason, because, he's between his legs, windmill, just threw one down, just kind of messing around. You're like, oh, okay. Yeah. All right.
You just
won.
Yeah,
exactly. Like you do it for 5 minutes. But I think it's interesting because I don't know, Mo. I mean, you've got a point guard who's quick, who can get to the rim, who obviously can get his buddies involved, right? I mean, he did a great job of that, like you said, at the end of the year. You've got shooters. You've got a guy who can get to the rim. You've got guys who can rebound. You've got bigs who can put the ball in the basket. I mean, man, you have to be excited if you're a Gonzaga fan.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of our, obviously on paper, and like you said, like all airport team, but like if you look at the numbers and what these guys have done in other places, and then last year we got a real good chance to, be a number 1 seed.
Yeah.
Or were we a 3 last year? Which is fine. We were in there 2 the year before.
Yep.
So it's been a few years since we've been a 1. I always like, if you're 4 and below, you're fine.
Yeah.
And you can argue sometimes it's good to be a 6, and it depends how it works out. Whatever.
Yeah.
But I think this is like a legitimate number 1 seed candidate, type team. And a lot of it will have to be with health and stuff like that, but then the depth will help. But again, the biggest thing moving forward early in the season, I want the listener to understand, is like when you're watching the games, look at the rotations, who's getting in first, who's allowed to make a mistake. That'll kind of tell you, and obviously those change a little bit, but if you're first out of the starting block, it kind of helps as a player, because those 2 guards are going to eat up a ton of minutes, man. Yeah. Hey, good job to the Braden Smith kid.
Yep.
Where did he come from? Duquesne or something? Colgate.
Yeah, it was Ivy League.
Like coming here in red shirt and just like having the guts to do that. Nobody does that anymore.
No.
Like literally nobody's like, red shirt? I shouldn't have to. He's like, no, I'm going to come here and I'm going to get the keys to the team after 2 years or after a year. And I'm going to play a ton, and I get to watch these guys and learn and go against, high level point guard play and practice, blah, blah, blah. Like, good for him, because that rarely happens anymore, and everybody's offended by it.
Right. No, seriously. And watching him play, like, in Craziness, watch him go up and down the floor. Yeah, this guy can play right now, right?
Play. Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, to have that, confidence. Like, I'm going to sit out and I'm going to be good and I'm going to take this thing over. And, going against Ryan Nembhard every day is going to be all right.
Well, and we haven't redshirted like Braden didn't he? Yeah. But it used to be one of our staples. And it's not like we haven't tried, but it's just nobody wants to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Or it's like, let's just get everybody on the roster. And if something crazy happens, we have them. We don't have to ruin it. So I'm happy for that kid to make that decision. He's from Tacoma or something like that.
Yeah, he's West Side kid.
Oh, so like we probably had him on our radar and, didn't take him for whatever reason or had somebody else. You just don't know how it goes recruiting wise, but it's cool that he didn't get like offended. Be like, I'll never go to there. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's curious. Let's get into the schedule a little bit.
Yeah.
You talked about it earlier. First, we were playing a USC exhibition game, which just kind of popped up out of nowhere. Is that at a casino or something?
That's a great question. I
was like, what is this?
Somebody told me, and I haven't got that much into it. It's a charity. It's just these things you talk about, stuff that's popped up. You can play these because it's supposed to be. Remember, it was the secret scrimmages and nobody could know and all this stuff. And then they were doing them for you could do one kind of secret scrimmage. It isn't secret for charity, right?
Yeah.
So they're gonna. Go and sell some tickets and then probably donate the money. Yeah. And,
well, does it go into our pockets too a little bit?
I don't know. Because I know when they did it in the past, and I want to say, I don't know if it was right after COVID or when it started, but there was a reason that, or maybe it was a hurricane.
Didn't you guys
relief,
do like the Tennessee or something?
Yeah, but that was a pay-per-view just,
the
schools
that was
going,
a weird one.
Go and do that. But yeah, so it is kind of interesting that one popped up. But it's going to be fun to be able to see it, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, to get a good idea because Warner Pacific is going to be your
traditional exhibition. So opening with Baylor at their arena. What's your thoughts on? I mean, Baylor's always tough, good.
Yep.
But starting the season in the arena is kind of weird, right?
Yeah, and what's funny is I think it's a 3-year deal, right? And I think they're all supposed to be neutral sites, right? So who knows if we don't go down. I haven't talked to anybody about it enough, but maybe we go down and play in Dallas. We've done that with them a few years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if Waco's got
Austin. We go to Dallas, right?
Yeah, that would probably be it. And then I don't know where the third one, because I think there was talk this game might have been played in Las Vegas, and some of that stuff was rolling around. So yeah, it is kind of interesting to be in the arena to start the year. And to start with a team like Baylor at the beginning of the year, right? I mean, but you know what? I commend Coach Few and Jorge who helps them schedule and trying to figure these things out. Hey, why not? Let's go. It's opening night. Let's make it something that people are excited about, right? Like let's go out and play one instead of, right? You have mixed feelings on it. You like to play a game. You feel like we can win, even if we're a little bit rusty and we're not great, we can win. But heck, they're going to be in the same boat, right? It's first game for both teams. So
it's just curious, because we've played solid in the arena, but I know Fewy traditionally doesn't like it. And I'm probably not supposed to say that, but I've said it before in episodes. It was a weird atmosphere, but the Kentucky game probably changed that. Yep. The mindset because we played really good in there and shot it better.
Yeah, and remember in January we played Pep.
We played Pep.
And the fans were there, right?
Yeah,
that wasn't a deal where you were, like, oh my gosh, it's, we only got 8,000 people. It's sold out.
It sells out. Yeah. It's just, I think.
Yeah, it's a different
vibe. It's a different shooting environment. I'll just say that. It's not a bad thing. It's just, especially for hoops, you want to be in your, counting as a home game, you want to be at home is what I'm trying to get at. Like it counts as a home game, but it's really not. I know, well, it's in the geographic. It's like, well, it's not the same. It's not the same locker room. You got to travel there. You know what I mean? You got to drive bus there and all that stuff. Then Arizona State's an interesting one in, McCarthy, which I think is another good 2 opening games for us. I haven't looked at them too deep. I'll get into it in later episodes. Hurley's still there, right?
Hurley's still there.
So that's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, you're going to get your money's worth.
You're going to get your money's worth. Yeah. It's fun watching him like scream at officials. And I mean that in a nice way. Like he's a great coach. He comes from a great lineage of coaches, great player, all the good stuff.
Yeah.
He just goes nuts on officials. So
yes, he does.
We'll have a front row seat to that. And I'll probably have my ears the mic off or the headphones off so I can hear like, oh yeah, sweet. Tell him he sucks. As he goes by for the third possession of the game. You worthless PP. Yes. Awesome. But yeah, that's another great matchup. And then, at San Diego State, I'm skipping over like UMass, Lowell, Bucknell.
Right.
Like, obviously, those should be wins. No disrespect to them. San Diego State, that'll be a tough one.
Yep.
We played there last, what was it, 9-17? Is that one, that Rui game? And we just got like waxed.
Yep. Remember Jesse Wade hit a shot late in that game?
Oh, yeah.
Tell you about the few highlights.
Yeah, it was. I remember that because that's an interesting arena. It's like kind of older, and you don't expect it as much, but it's super loud. It's kind of a bowl,
it's like a bowl instead of sunken in, and it doesn't feel like it's going to be a great atmosphere. And it gets their students, remember, because they scheduled that game. They stayed, if I remember correctly. It was finals week.
Oh yeah,
and they scheduled it so the students were all still there, which obviously made it a
tough
really
atmosphere
good environment. Yeah, it was fun.
I remember that because we flew back with the team that trip, and I remember we had to stop some random place to get gas, and Tommy and Fury in the corner of this tiny, municipal airport or whatever, private airport. It's just a room. It's about as big as this room, arguing over like Fury's like literally like, we should run flex. We can't run ball strips. What are you talking about? Like, they were like pissed. And it was the most awkward but funny thing to be like fly on the wall, like listening to it. Because they were so mad because we played so bad because Perk was terrible. Remember Rui had like a breakaway and he like mistimed his jump and like fumbled. It was just like, oh God, we're going to lose tonight. So that'll be fun to go play there again. Obviously it's cool to go back to San Diego, to have that opportunity. Then Long Beach State, was that made before?
No, I think it was after.
Oh, okay. Because I was curious with Munson if that was like, hey, let's finally play each other. And maybe they would, but it was after. Okay. But he's at Eastern now. Congrats to him. That's pretty cool that he got a chance to come home and continue to coach. Good coach. And then we go to the Battle for Atlantis. We got West Virginia to start, Indiana or Louisville. And what they really want is everybody to meet Arizona on the backside, which would be interesting.
Yeah, that would be really interesting, right? And you know what's funny is I remember when they first announced, this is how crazy college basketball is now, right? Like when they announced the field, you're kind of like, like West Virginia is kind of struggling a little bit. You're like Indiana, great name, but they haven't been playing great. Louisville, kind of whatever. Well, now transfer portal, right? All of a sudden, boom, boom, boom. And shoot, you play Indiana, you're going to see another former Zag. You're going to see a former Wildcat. Umar Ballo was playing for Indiana, right? But it's funny because your roster can turn over so quick. So it went from like, oh, it's a good tournament, not a great tournament, to all of a sudden you're like, hey, there's some players, there's some teams. This is going to be good.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, obviously everybody's, has that thing penciled in with their fingers crossed, kind of like the Yankees Dodgers World Series, right?
Exactly.
Like,
that's why I guarantee
we don't want
that's
Cleveland to
Cleveland Padres.
Yeah.
Yay.
Right. Obviously that's
bad advertisers were calling like, so about that price, we want 20% off. All right. You know what I mean? Like, what do you say?
So, it's, I don't know, Mo, what your feeling is on that. Like, I have such mixed emotions about it, right? Obviously, we're the two premier programs on the West Coast, right?
We are.
Keep San Diego State, in the mix. Obviously, they played for a championship, but look at, we're right there.
It would be us. There's four real quick. It's those two, San Diego State and UCLA.
Yeah.
Traditionally, UCLA wasn't good last year, but they've been good for
for
5, 6, Cronin or whatever is how long he's been there. Yeah. So those are the top four. Keep going.
Yeah, no, but it's interesting, right? Because I think inevitably it was going to happen, but still there's that kind of feeling of, especially now Tommy, his entire staff almost is former Zags, right?
Yeah,
he's,
they literally
they've had a ton around, but now, they're a bunch of guys that we know, right? So there's part of it, you'd be like, hey, we're playing for a championship against our guys. This is awesome. And then there's part of it to me, it's like, oh man, we really have to do this.
Yeah,
it's
you don't
like
play your buddies.
No, and I think that's, that will be an interesting one, I think, for a lot of reasons. But if you're doing it in the championship, what the heck? It's not in the 5th, 6th place game, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. The weird time slot. You're just like, oh, I want to go home. Or it's like, we're going home in a day after. So then you're like, during that game, you're like, I want to get on the beach. This is stupid. Why are we calling this crap? You know what I mean? Like, right? You're just like, when's happy hour? You know what I mean? Like, it's just race to the hotel, let's change shirts real quick, and let's go drink some beers. You know what I mean? Like, let's get. I'm tired of basketball right now. And then after that, Kentucky at the Climate Pledge. That'll be interesting. Obviously, it's a new look Kentucky team. Mark Pope, we're familiar with his style. He had a really good year last year, and hats off to him. We were kind of like, I don't think they're going to be great in the Big 12. And they ended up going, 8-8, which is really good in that league, and had a bid or whatever, got into the NCAA tournament. So it'd be interesting to see him at Kentucky, though.
Yeah.
Familiarity is what I'm trying to get at, too, though.
Yep.
And then UConn and Madison Square, that's going to be a fun one.
Yeah.
That's going to be a tough one, not just because of UConn, but that's a true road game, even though it's a neutral.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you play in Madison Square, like in the St. John's, St. Joe's, UConn, Duke, like that's a home game for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And, I think traditionally, Mo, if you look back at all of our games back there, I think you go back to that first one where we beat North Carolina, with, Matt Bolden had a really good game in that one. I was about, we were 7 or 8, I think. It was right after you had played, I think.
Yeah, it was right after, the year after.
Yeah, but a great game there. Then we played Butler after that, and before Butler kind of blew up. And then, after that, we've had a couple against Duke that haven't been really good games for us. Last time we played,
we got killed my freshman year by St. Joe's. That really good St. Joe's team.
Right.
Like
it's tough. I mean, people, we talk about the travel, and it really is a tricky situation. And then, like you said, and then you add the atmosphere. It's going to be a home game for UConn. And you add the UConn's really good.
Yeah.
But I mean, it'll be a lot of fun. I'm with you. And, I've over the years always, it's like Madison Square Garden, the Mecca, and first time I walked in there, I was like, this is the Mecca? It was just kind of dirty and run down. And then I always tell the story. It was funny because that first year that I was there, you're walking around in the tunnel, where the locker rooms are, and they've got all those pictures up, right? Of all of the stuff that's happened. And then you're just like, wait, hey, there's Muhammad Ali. Oh, hey, there's Elvis. And actually, Bing Crosby was outside of the locker room we were using that first game we played there, which was kind of crazy. But when you stop and think about the history of it and how much stuff's gone on, I mean, what a great place. And those New Yorkers know their basketball. Yeah. And even if they don't, if they're not UConn fans, they're going to show up and they're going to know it's a great place to play. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's a cool matchup. It's a cool experience. I got, obviously, besides the pros, I've got to play, and I had that one game there, and it was a really cool experience. Yeah. It's just different. The lighting's different, and then you just if you understand hoops, you understand, like you're right. Like it's
Willis Reed, right?
Yeah, you just go back like, oh man, there's been a lot of great all-time performances, teams, all that stuff, and then you're like, but it is kind of a dump. Yeah. And you're back there like, this is old, man, but it's their dump, and I mean that in a nice way. You know what I mean? Like, it's just old, but it's cool. It's got a unique feel to it. It's New York. People are going to chirp at you. You know what I mean? It's just a different feel.
Man, you're in New York City and you walk by I mean, Gonzaga versus, Connecticut in the lights up there, and everybody's seeing, you're like, oh,
this is pretty cool. Yeah. So then we wrap the non-conference with UCLA in the Intuit Dome. Is that the Clippers spot?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I figured. That's pretty cool. So brand new arena. UCLA is always strong. They didn't have a great year last year, but Mick Cronin will have them going again. And then, that's January or December 30th. Then we start league play.
Yep.
Great non-conference schedule, like you said. It's gonna be tough. Great opportunity to get some, resume building wins. I know they're early, but we've talked about that on our broadcast. I've talked about it on this show. So I think Fewy and the staff did a good job of making challenging games, but having some in-betweens. But it's a perfect segue into, probably the biggest news of the whole summer is going to the Pac-12.
Yeah.
My initial thoughts, I'm going to ask for yours after I give mine, were I was excited for it. I think it's the right thing. We've had numerous conversations and a lot of times disagreeing on certain points about this. I think it's time for a change in a good way. I like the history of the WCC. You understand it more than I do.
Yeah.
But from a revenue standpoint and a solvency standpoint, I know we have a terrific brand, but we don't have football. Getting into one of these conferences with a TV revenue opportunity hasn't happened yet, but it's going to, theoretically. It had to do it.
Yeah. No, I agree. And what's incredible, Mo, is, I mean, you talk about just the speed with which all of this stuff is happening, right? Mm-hmm. When we first started having these conversations, I mean, it's not even 2 years ago, right? I mean, we were down in Austin
Yeah.
playing Texas. And that's right when it came out that,
It was
you
the
know,
Big
the
12.
Big 12
Yeah.
had talked to us and all this was going on. You know, so that's 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
2 years ago, in my mind, I was like, well, gosh, I mean, hey, we've had success from here. We've played for 2 national championships here.
Yeah.
It ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. You're right.
Right.
100%.
And then 24 months, and not even that. I mean, 12 months later, you've got conferences blowing up. You know, everybody's going and grabbing what's best for them. And now you have to sit back and look at it like you said, okay, well, wait a second. Now what happens? Right? Well, you do need to find a way to get some more revenue. And you need to be probably in a league, and I know this has been talked about some, where if things continue to shift, that you're not on the outside looking in.
100%.
Right? And if all of a sudden, you know, there's a TV contract for the NCAA tournament that says, well, they're only going to be these conferences invited and everybody else can just go do whatever they want to do, and you're in one of the conferences that gets left out, you know, now I've always believed, like you said, our brand is so strong, somewhere you'd find a way. But I also think that with the uncertainty and the way things are just flying around, I mean, honestly, Mo, 18 months ago, you'd be like, oh, yeah, Stanford and Cal are going to be in the ACC, and and UW and Oregon are going to be in the Big Ten, and USC, and you wouldn't have ever said any of that stuff, or even thought that, you know, if you believe any of the stuff that's gone on in the Pac-12 talks, right, that they're talking to Connecticut and Memphis and, you know, Central Florida, and like the fact that this thing has turned into this big national, you know, deal. Yeah, I mean, the conversation, I mean, my pride isn't so great that, I mean, I can't, you know, hey, I can change my mind. And I'm with you. Like, I think it's a good thing. Yeah, you know, and I think that with the schools that they got in from a basketball perspective, obviously that's really huge.
Yeah.
Right. You know, I think I would argue that, you know, 3 years ago or 5 years ago when we were talking about, oh, we should leave the WCC for the Mountain West. And when you were looking at those 2 conferences, you're like, well, winning here. Mountain West hasn't been all that great necessarily. The last 3 or 4 years, Mountain West has really stepped up and been fantastic. But at the time, I didn't think that it was necessarily a great move.
No, I agree.
You know, now when you look at where the schools are that are moving from Mountain West into the Pac-12, all of a sudden you're like, okay, hey, this, you know, I forget. I mean, I'm sure you saw those numbers, like, you know, 16s, 17s made it in. I mean, net rankings were, you know, the worst one of those teams that made it in was like in 48 or something.
Yeah.
I mean, all of a sudden that you're joining a good basketball conference, and that, you know, and that makes sense.
Well, I think, you know, from another angle on why it's a positive, and this is just being around the program and being around Spokane, obviously, is people can't complain as much about bad home games to go watch. So that kind of checks a box.
Yeah.
Okay. And this goes into, they just reset the building, which I think should have happened 10 years ago. That's just my opinion, but I'm glad they did it. I think it's positive. Now, I'm not the one on the outside looking in and who might have felt they got slighted, but you got to re-up your brand, and times change, and you got to pay more, blah, 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 all that stuff. So that helps the brand in a sense of better home games, more exciting, you know, January, February games.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
And not that we don't, not that the West Coast Conference doesn't have those, but a lot of times they don't.
But a lot of times they don't. Yeah, no, and 100%, right? And I think that's, like, for me, Mo, that when you look at it, and nobody could have had the foresight 15 years ago to see how this thing would change. But I think just the schools in the WCC, we've talked about this before, you know, when we went to the Elite Eight and then we to the Sweet 16, I think everybody kind of felt like it was a one-bid league. It was you know, mid-major conference, right? It was like, okay, this team's got a bunch of seniors, they're going to graduate, they're going to fall to the bottom of the line. This team that had, you know, 3 juniors and 2 sophomores, they're going to rise up and they're going to be our, you know, team that goes to the tournament, and then they're going to go down in the next school. Well, all of a sudden we just kept winning. And I think everybody was just kind of sitting around twiddling their thumbs waiting for us to, you know, kind of fall back. And we never did. And then by the time now, I think some of the schools have tried to get into the race. Problem is Gonzaga, as Usain Bolt, and, you know, we're running 100 meters and we're at the 60-meter line before anybody else, you know, decided, hey, we better start, right? I mean, I think St. Mary's has done a great job with their building, their facilities, what they can, right? I mean, and you know, and what Randy's done with that program to be competitive. You know, I think USF here lately has stepped up and spent some money. You know, Pep's building a new place. I know it's not huge, but, you know, they're finally building a new, you know, a new arena. I think Santa Clara has shown some signs, but again, it hasn't been enough to where you could say, you know, the West Coast Conference has, you know, 5 6 teams that have an opportunity to make an NCAA tournament every year, right? And I mean, I think Remember when USF made it 2 years ago? It was the first time.
It was a 3-bid or whatever.
Yeah, since, I mean, San Diego was the last non-Gonzaga or St. Mary's team outside of BYU since like 2008.
Yeah.
Right.
Crazy.
So you're right. I mean, I think that when you kind of look at it, it will be a lot more competitive, right? It's going to be.
Boise State good, Utah State good, San Diego State good, Colorado State was good last year.
Yep.
Who am I leaving out? I mean, that right there. Then us. So that's 5, 6.
Fresno State.
Fresno State's usually solid.
Wazoo had been good. Now Cal Smith left, so who knows, right?
Yeah.
And then Oregon State.
Wazoo will be solid. I mean,
and it'll be an exciting game for us, right? I mean, the rivalry part of it will be
it's huge for here,
for
man.
Our area,
there's going to be a lot of people that you're going to find out if they really were Zag fans.
Yeah, right.
Or just de facto, now that we're, you know what I mean? So that part's always interesting.
What's going to be funny too, Mo, is I'm interested, your take on this one is I saw some of the stuff from the WCC and Mountain West Media Days, and I felt sorry for all, I mean, the poor people, you go down there, it's like, all right, we're going to have our media days. Let's talk about the upcoming season. Everybody's like, you're going to the Pac-12 and you're going to the Pac-12, right? I mean, it was, but anyway, one of the conversations and some of the questions were being asked by Coach Few, and I saw Leon was asked one, and he had to answer kind of, what's it going to be like for Mark to be in a league where essentially, I'm paraphrasing, he's not the bully and doesn't get to tell everybody what to do and how to do it. And Leon was great because I will say this, and we sometimes give Coach a hard time, but like, and I thought Leon said it very well. Look, most of the time when Coach is talking about stuff, he's right when it comes to those things.
Yeah.
Mark didn't walk in and say Gonzaga gets everything, the WCC gets nothing.
Yeah.
Mark walked in after, you're playing an opening round game against a team with a 340 RPI and you win it by 40. And your net ranking slips by 7 or 8 spots, and it costs you a seed.
Seed.
It's a seed line. And so he's like, hey, wait a second. Like, we need to protect our best teams. If that's Gonzaga, great. If we're number 8, we'll play on Thursday night. But Mark didn't walk in and say, give Gonzaga everything.
Yeah, give us a...
When the share thing happened, it was like I said, nobody's been to the tournament for 14 years. You guys are happy to cash the check, but you're not investing any money into what should be our premier program, our premier product, which was men's basketball. And so he's like, hey, the teams that make it should get the most of it.
Yep. Which is
that's not and like he said, if we don't make it, we'll take the lesser share. It wasn't, we still get a share no matter what. So I think it's funny. And I saw an article was written and I haven't read it yet, but it was along those same lines of like having to adjust being in a league where you don't just get to dictate everything going on. And I think it's kind of an interesting take because I don't know that, I mean, Mark's not going to walk into a league and start saying, hey, we have to do this, that. But he's also very much going to, if he has ideas, he's going to share them because I think a lot of his ideas are really good. Yeah. Right. I mean, I mean, he knows the game. He knows how this stuff works. Yeah. But I'm curious what you think about that. It was kind of an interesting angle to me on just Gonzaga's not going to get to be the big brother who just tells everybody what to do anymore.
Yeah. I think you said it best. Like, his ideas are the right ones. Like, if you're winning, you should get more money. This is America, right? I mean, whatever. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're winning and investing more into your program, and you get the fruits of your labor, and then like the third game was always dumb for the West Coast Conference tournament because it's not even about the line slippage or the net ranking slippage as much as look at Eastern Washington men's hoops.
Yep.
And we talk about it every time. And I know they're not even on the same planet. This is not a knock, brand-wise, okay? But we root for them because I know a lot of people and blah, blah, blah. Yep. Like, it's a good basketball on the men's and girls side. They're both good hoops, good programs. They really are. But they've lost 2 years in a row in the first round of their Big Sky tournament.
Yep.
Why do they have to play at noon against the team that finished 9th? Right. But it might be a shitty matchup. Like, they won the league. Let them advance one time.
Yep. Yeah, right.
It just doesn't make sense. And so I think he was spot on with that. And going away from that third game was brilliant because it's almost like, all right, maybe we miss out on a weird 9 p.m. ESPN where they throw you on a Tuesday night or whatever, or Friday night or whatever slot. But like, that's really not going to put any, that's not, we've already have those games. You know what I'm saying? We don't need this kind of loser out.
Right.
Type of situation where a team that doesn't deserve to have that type of thing, unless they win some games. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
So I think just overall, it'll be sad losing the St. Mary's rivalry, because we've talked about this a lot on our broadcast. I've talked about it in the show. I have a lot of affinity for that program. I think they're mostly good people down there.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of get it. They try to do it the right way. They've scratched and clawed, and they're relevant, and they produce good players and good teams, and Randy's got it figured out. So we're always like tip of the cap to you.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the programs, and like you just mentioned, the West Coast Conference don't even give a shit anymore. They don't try.
No.
I mean, it's just the reality.
Yeah.
And nobody likes to hear it, but it's like you go down there. So it's been like this since 2007.
Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean you have to go crazy, but it's, like, it's not like you guys are like a poorly funded state school.
Yeah.
You got some money, right? And you should have a booster base that can at least throw something at you to get things going.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff will suck. Like I said, losing some of the history, but we've just moved past it. And it's not a thumb in our nose at your, nose in the air type of thing is what I'm trying to say. It's just, it's time to move on.
Yeah, it is. Well, and it's interesting you say that. I saw some reaction after from some of the other schools, and people were like, "Oh, great! Well, finally something else can actually kind of win, right?" And and I mean, obviously St. Mary's is going to, I object to that a little bit, because St. Mary's has, been the number 2 team this entire time, and I know last year they won. I'm not saying they've never won, but if you were ranking, it's Gonzaga and then St. Mary's and then, kind of everybody else.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is going to be interesting to see that. And I think, Mo, for me, just being an old guy who just likes tradition and likes stuff that makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I want to watch, Oregon play on New Year's Day in the Rose Bowl against Michigan.
Yeah.
I don't want to watch them play, or I don't want to watch UCLA at Rutgers. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
From that standpoint, I mean, the league's been around, we've been in the league for 40 years or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And we talked to Chris Stanford, our athletic director, who, God bless him, he's done a great job with all this. There's a lot that's going on behind the scenes over the last 2 years, and even just dealing with all the stuff that's been out front. But we were talking about that. And he said that was a pretty hard call to make. It's like when we had the conference call, he's like, these are people.
Yeah.
And we forget that sometimes. Everybody's talking about the numbers and the schools and the NIL. You just throw out the letters, whatever. It's like, we have relationships with people,
and they're good
across the league, and they're good people. And so, I mean, from that standpoint, I mean, look at where we were in 1998 and where we are, and we did it while a member of that conference. And it's been fun, and we always talk about it's the best travel league in America.
I was just gonna say,
we love our travel, but
travel league, it's the best. It is hands down. It's not even close.
Yeah, but I think you're right. I mean, I think we've gotten to a point where it makes sense that we're playing against these other schools, and what I think too, like getting back to, hey, you've got a league tournament, and you've got of your 8 or 9 or 10 teams. Obviously, there are more teams coming.
Yeah.
If that first round game is against a team that's in the top 100. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, maybe get one bye, but then, in your quarterfinals, you're okay. Well, that's fine. And the problem was,
you're such a drop off.
Yeah. But
it was always bad for us to, when I was playing, we'd always do those weird December games, like when we played Memphis at Memphis, because our RPI would just go to the tank playing our conference.
Yeah.
So we always had to have a buffer game or something like that. But that's changed a little bit. He's figured out that the formula is different on how they schedule and teams are better, blah, blah, blah. But he didn't go into that conference, like you said, and just demanding just out of, we're Gonzaga. It's like, no, this is, like you said, just take the name off the chest. And if this is team A is doing that, then team B, C, and D don't get what team A gets for having the success. And so I think that was always an issue that people around the program had with the conference, and they've tried their best. But also it was, I mean, we still got 2 more seasons. So I want to make sure I'm saying this the right way. They're nice people, but like when we went to Pepperdine, like this year, like when we show up to the game, like they don't even have like a power source to plug in our radio. And they're looking at us like we're assholes asking them to like plug in to broadcast a game. And you're like, this game is on ESPN later. And you know what I'm saying? Like there's just like, it's not the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But like you gotta have like a power source.
Yeah.
You're like, seriously, remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that.
And then the camera was like in direct line of sight in our way.
Yeah.
And you're just like, we should just go down, sit on a stool behind a bench and just call it with our phones.
Right.
And just call it in and
just kind of funny.
Yeah, just call in with our phones. Like, but you're just like, that's some of the attitude with some of the schools. They just don't care. I guess it's don't care. And it's funny because you feel bad because these are still Division I athletes, and so it's not like they're not at terrible. These are prestigious universities.
Yep.
Let me get that. West Coast Conference, private Jesuit schools. You're doing all right.
Yep.
But also, it's like it feels like a JC sometimes with like the facilities and how they're. You know what I mean? You just feel bad. So it's interesting, but we're obviously going to have to step up our game a little bit, and in regards to competing with these other schools. I mean, Utah State.
Yeah.
We talk about how tough it was to play at BYU. You want to go to Logan?
Yeah.
That's going to be a hard one.
Yeah. That's going to be a real one.
You know, and then Fort Collins.
Even going into Fort Collins.
Yep.
You know, I mean, it's going to be interesting. And I've been way back. I mean, I've been to games there, you know, and when it's going.
Yeah.
That's tough. That's a tough place.
You got the elevation
It's a college outpost too, right? I mean, this is, it's one thing for us, like we, flying to Los Angeles, like you said,
exactly.
It's like you're there and it's not, some of the kids are at the beach, it's not, I mean, you're going to a place where, hey, it's Thursday night and the Rams are playing. And we're like, guess what we're doing? Like we're going, so they're going to be some really tougher matches. Like you said, I'm actually kind of excited to see Logan, I mean, going back to Fort Collins would be great.
Well, I think this season is going to be interesting, and the next is, I know for a fact that Fewey's going to want to obviously win the West Coast Conference the last 2 seasons, and probably like to go undefeated. It's hard to do, but that's another thing that's going to be kind of cool this year. Is like, hey, this thing is, the bow's getting put on the present, or it's getting wrapped up here. Dirt's getting thrown on the coffin. Let's make sure we win this sucker twice.
Yeah.
So it'll be cool to watch as we get into conference season, if that is kind of messaged out to our guys. Obviously, we take pride in the deal, but it's like we want to be 24, 25, 25, 26 West Coast Conference champions forever.
And be able
to, I mean? Just, all right, have fun, guys. So yeah, looking forward to the season, man. I appreciate you coming on. It's always fun. We'll obviously be on our broadcast and stuff, and then when we leave Friday, right?
Friday.
Sweet.
Yeah,
it's good.
Down, see the sun.
Palm Desert, right?
Yeah.
We're flying to Palm Springs, though.
Flying to Palm Springs. Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah,
it's nice.
Should be a lot of fun.
It's not snowing here though yet, so it's kind of like
true.
It's usually it's like, give me that, Huddy, 5:45 a.m. flight, do it, book it. Can't check into our rooms yet. Who cares?
We've done that a pretty many times.
Here you go.
Yep.
And where's happy hour at 10 a.m.? Kate doesn't know that, right?
No, not at all.
So, all right. I appreciate everybody listening. Thank you to our sponsor, McGillivray Environmental. Tune in next time.
Working this graveyard shift, I hate it. 6 in the morning, I'm off, I made it. When I get home, I'ma make this clear. First thing I'ma drink is a Rainier beer. I ain't no lush, shut up, hush. This is how I zone out. I'ma take this check, put it on me. I'm a much better boss than an employee. Just cause you got time, don't waste time. It's about time, feel the sunshine. You got time, but don't waste time. It's go time. Get up, get down. The time's right now, now. Turn up, turn down. I don't even know how. Yes, sir. I'm on 100 now. Mess around and find out. Get up.
The podcast intro song is Get Up by Jinx Universe. Listen to his music on Spotify and follow him on social media at I am Jinx Universe. Produced locally in Spokane, Washington at Spokecast.